Good morning and welcome to Morning Moments. I am so glad that you joined us again for today's special guest, all the way from, and it's not too far from me actually, all the way from Virginia Beach, where I live, is Pastor Samuel Meade. Welcome, Pastor Meade.
It's a privilege to be here, Andy.
Samuel, tell everybody as we get started, how did we get to know each other?
Yeah, great question. Well, Andy, you and I know each other from church. You and I do ministry together as we pastor people. Really, we just help people go through life through small groups and uh, a variety of hurdles they have in their life. But you and I we know each other through church, and we're brothers in Christ.
Great, great. You're on staff that it's a church or one of the pastors at the Vineyard. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the founder of the church has the same last name. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So my parents, Andy and Sharon Meade, co-senior pastor our church, and they are the co-founders. They started the church coming up, I think 27 here now, 27 years ago, 1994, in the basement, in the garage of their house. So yes, I am related to them.
And you're in ministry, and you're in the same ministry as your dad. Are you following your father's footsteps, or why are you doing what you're doing?
That's a great question, Andy. Growing up, I remember people asking me a very similar question. They would ask, "You're going to be a pastor like your parents?" And I remember as a kid, I would always say, "No way." Say, "Not me." And, I did. I think looking back, that was part of me discovering my own relationship with the Lord. And I think I've always had a relationship with the Lord, but really understanding what it means to have a personal, intimate Samuel Meade relationship with Jesus Christ. And, that's a story in itself, just walking that journey. But I did come to really encounter the Lord in a more personal and intimate way in my early 20s. And that's really what launched what I see as my ministry calling, and just saying that I'm called to spread the gospel and to make disciples. And that happens to be the same job my dad and mom have. But it's more about where Jesus has called me and less about where my parents are.
Yeah. Yeah. Being raised in a pastor's home myself, and my brother being a pastor for many, many years. And I worked as a pastor too at one time, and later became a registered nurse. Uh, there's an expectation of following in dad's footsteps, but you definitely have to hear from God yourself for what you're supposed to do, don't you?
For sure, I agree. And it is a privilege to do ministry alongside my parents. I consider it one of the greatest privileges that the Lord has given me, that blessing. But I do identify myself as, it really comes down to when people ask me another question is, "Hey, are you going to take over that church?" I simply respond, "Hey, I'm here wherever the Lord sends me. If the Lord calls my wife Olivia and I to Africa tomorrow or China, we're going. Or if he calls me to stay here, I'm here." So I'm really available to what the Lord has for me.
Or Portsmouth.
Or Portsmouth.
That's a Hampton Roads joke for those who are not sure what that meant. So great. When I think about ministry, and I think about being raised in a family of the legacy of Christians and Christian ministry, I heard somebody say that God doesn't have any grandchildren. So what that meant is that I had to realize that for myself, I had to hear God, and I had to depend on God for myself, because although my parents were Christians, I'm not God's grandchild, I'm his child. And that was something I really had to grab a hold of growing up in a pastor's home.
Yeah, no, that's great. What a great saying. I've not heard that before, but I'm adding that to my vocabulary.
You're going to steal that from me and use it in a sermon. I know you're going to use it.
Probably.
Nothing's new, but everybody thinks to preach a brand new sermons no one's ever heard. It's all been said before. It's just so you took it from somebody else.
You're blowing the whistle there, Andy.
That's, that's right. So we are in some very changing times. What kind of lessons or messages have you heard in your heart during these changing times? What have you learned from this?
Man, great question. It is definitely changing and challenging times. Um, I think personally, on a personal level, something I feel that the Lord's really impressed upon me in the past year and going beyond a year now, just with COVID and everything, is that, the Lord's number one in control of everything. And just the reminder of the verse, that he has plans to prosper us and that he's going to turn everything for his glory and to bring about blessing. And, this past year, I've told many people, my wife, the staff I work with, and church team members, this year honestly has been a year of great challenge. But looking back, I was reflecting, I like to reflect at the end of the year and just kind of look at the year and prepare for the next year. It was also a year of great blessing in some crazy ways and just ways I didn't notice until I looked back, and just how the Lord worked through that. And wasn't always easy to see, but that he is faithful through that. And it's easier said than, you know, on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't feel that way. But, when I look back, I see the promises he's brought about, the great blessings he's brought in our church and in my life and just the lives of those around me. And not that there hasn't been challenges, but that he is faithful. And so that's kind of been just a personal word for me.
I've talked to pastors from all over in California and different places, uh, and other ministries that have had to reinvent themselves.
Mhm.
Comedians, Christian comedians, gospel singers, songwriters, and pastors that said, "Well, we're used to just people coming, and now we have to go to them virtually." And I think that there's been some eyes opening of how we can pass on the message and
Mhm.
not restrict it to our four walls.
Yeah, it's
And
good.
there's been some great testimonies and messages about people who heard from you or heard from the church
Mhm.
that would have never heard if they hadn't gone online.
Yeah. No, I agree. Looking back, it's just a fresh reminder for me that I think the vision God has for his people has never changed. And the way, the beauty of it is we are God's plan A as people. We get to participate with him and what he's doing here in the world. And that changes what that looks like, I think changes, whether it's in our circumstance, online, in person, and so much more. But the core things have not changed about who God is and what he wants for us. And so that's been refreshing.
Yeah, nothing that has happened to our political system, to our economic system, to our healthcare system, to the virus, nothing has happened surprised God.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know,
Yep.
it surprised a lot of people, but God was the last to be surprised about that. He knew what was going on, right?
For sure.
Good, good. Well, Samuel, I do appreciate you taking to time out. What I'm going to do is put down on the bottom here on the comment sections ways that they could get a hold of the church and also church ministry locally here in Virginia Beach, or people who want to talk to you across the nation, across the world, and how they could get connected with you. That'll be there in a resource there in the website as well.
Sure. Great. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time today, and um, it's really a pleasure and honor to serve beside you and to work with you in ministry.
Likewise, Andy, I just love watching God work through you, and not just at Vineyard Church, but through the moments. I was sharing, which wasn't in the recording, but I'm adding it right now. Just how it's brought me joy, and some of the videos you've done, my wife and I, and talk about this challenging season. We are looking for every piece of joy we can pick up, and So thank you, Andy, for what you do and your faithfulness to the Lord.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you haven't seen my face dance on YouTube, you got to look that up. My face dance. Look that up. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me for Morning Moments, and thank you, Samuel, for being with us. And keep coming back each day, Monday through Friday, for some more special guests and for some more morning moments with Andy. Thank you so much.